What is up, guys? My name is Logan Tremellen, and this is the Defying Odds podcast. Today, I have on Cory Texter. He's a professional flat track racer, and he went to the XGames 4 times. With that being said, let's get right into it. It's great to have you on. I really appreciate you coming on. It's really funny because we were just talking earlier. We live like 5 minutes apart from each other.
Yeah.
And it's really funny that we've never actually connected, even though we're both in action sports and we're both really close to each other. It's funny. So I guess I'll just have you go into a little quick intro into you and, your backstory and what you're known for.
Yeah, for sure. Like I told you, I'm sort of a Lancaster transport. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, near King of Prussia area. I went to Springford High School, and my father, Randy, he always owned the Harley shop in Lancaster. So Lancaster Harley Davidson was our family dealership. But I lived near, outside Philly, and my dad was a pro racer. So when me and my sister Shayna races as well, which is the joke. I'm always Shayna's brother. But so we grew up racing. And then, one thing after the other. You do the local races, you do well, you do the regional races, and then it happened quick, I felt like, because I really didn't start racing full-time till I was like 14 years old. Like, I wrestled growing up, I ran track, I did other sports, played ice hockey, and then, it just happened quick. Like, it started picking up, like I was 14, 15. The new CRF 450 just came out around that time, which was like a big deal. Like, it was a 4-stroke bike. Carmichael was racing it, Kevin Windham. And then my dad got me that bike. Racing got serious. And then before I knew it, 2 years later, I was a pro rider. So happened quick. And then, I did the pro racing life from 2006 to I just retired this year. So 2022, I was a pro. So long journey, and we're still making chapters, just a little bit different from now on. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I had no idea that your dad owned the Harley Davidson dealership.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense why you got into racing. So you went into how you got into racing. I guess just go into more detail, because you definitely have a lot of success from what I've seen in racing. You won 2 championships. You went to the X Games 4 times. So let's walk into what did it take to go pro in flat track? I come from motocross, so I know what that takes, and or at least the ATV side of things. So I'm just curious. I've only known one other person who did flat track. I'm just curious, what goes into it, how much of a time commitment is it?
Yeah, I mean, the level of work that goes into professional sports, the last decade has really elevated. And you see it in moto, you see it in road racing, you see it in pretty much all action sports. So much, everyone's leveled up. Everyone's at training facilities. Everybody's, factories are getting involved. And in flat track, the sport's really grown the last 5-6 years. I mean, we were in the X Games for 4 years, which if you told me I was going to be in the X Games when I was 10 years old, I would have been like, for what? I don't, you know what I mean? If you said flat track would be in the X Games, not on my bingo card. So, so we did the X Games. That kind of grew the sport a little bit. ESPN actually did a segment on me and my sister that they showed before the X Games started, which was a huge deal. That was really cool, man. I was blessed for that. But so we did the X Games for 4 years, and then we were on NBC Sports, I think it was, the timeline. Then we ended up being on Fox Sports. So the TV coverage got better, and I'm not exactly sure why it all of a sudden started to elevate, because I feel like the first 10 years I was a pro, it was pretty low key. It wasn't, it was pro racing. We're getting paychecks, but it didn't level up to where we started seeing a lot more sponsors and other people involved. Even other action sports athletes like Travis Pastrana, he's come out and done flat track races. Ryan Villapoto, Chad Reed, Mark Marquez, all these, really popular riders in other disciplines, they drew some interest in flat track, and that really helped my career and what I was doing. Unfortunately, I just retired. I think it's still growing. I wish I had another 10 years in me, but it's actually, the journey has been crazy to see the sport grow, and then my career kind of grow as well.
So did you have a lot of training to do for pro? Obviously, it's a lot of riding and getting fast, but motocross is a lot of you need to be healthy and athletic. Is that the same I'm assuming it's the same for flat track?
Yeah, in moto, it's probably the percentage of athletes that train that hard are probably greater than flat track. But for myself personally, I train really hard. So I'm kind of known as the guy who who trains hard, because I never felt like I had the talent as some of the other riders that I raced with. So I would always just try to outwork them. I bicycle a lot, I run, just a lot of training goes into it. But yeah, I mean, training for me has always been kind of fun. I've always enjoyed going out and riding my bicycle. I just got done riding my bicycle like an hour ago. So it's turned into a hobby for me. It's something I love to do. It doesn't really feel like a grind, but yeah, that aspect of the sport has elevated too. There's guys I race with that, they can do pro mountain bike. They run marathons. Like there's really athletic flat track racers, where back in the day it was pretty blue collar. Like dudes were smoking cigs on the starting line, and it was like a lot more partying all night. I mean, there's still guys that have fun and party, but it's gotten way more serious. And I think it's gotten serious because of the money. Like there's big money that pretty good money that you can win. And that's the thing. Like the narrative in flat track, it's, you can't make any money doing it. It's like, yeah, you can. Like we need to treat this like, it's a job to get the respect of what motocross and those other disciplines are at. So
yeah. So walk me through like when you went pro, how'd that experience go, and how many years did it take you? And like, was it a big slap in the face when you went pro, and like just the speed difference from where you were at before? And then walk me through like the championships and the years in between,
Yeah. I was a cocky kid, man. I was an entitled, really cocky young kid coming up. So my dad, we owned the Harley shop, and a lot of things, and it wasn't my fault or my sister's fault. It's kind of all we knew, but we got things pretty easily because of who our dad was. And then, so I turned pro in 06, and yeah, I got my ass kicked. Like it was not easy at all. I thought it would come a lot easier, and I didn't really understand how racing worked back then. Like again, I said I felt entitled, and I never really put the work in. And then in 2010, my dad actually passed away. So everything that we had, kind of like the factory amateur racer deal we kind of had, it flipped, and it was the opposite. And that's a whole nother story to talk about. But we didn't have much after that. My dad had a lot of debt, a lot of credit card bills we had to cover. And we almost retired, me and Shayna, right after he passed away. We didn't have the funds to go racing. So the journey was kind of crazy. I helped Shayna out for a few years. I didn't even race for 2 years, like 2 full years. I barely raced at all. I was just kind of getting sponsors, helping her. And then Shayna won her first pro race. She was the first ever female, my sister Shayna, to win a pro race in 2011. And that was big news. And honestly, that kind of motivated me. Like for her to have that success, and then she won 3 more races the following year. It's like, man, this is awesome. I'm proud of my sis. But I don't want to look back and have regrets when I'm 50, 60 years old. So got back on the saddle, grinded out. It's a long story, But in 2019, I ended up, I think I was 30, 31, 32 years old. Who wins their first pro title at 32 years old? I mean, most guys are retired by then. And I won my first championship in 2019, 32 years old. And a lot of people might have thought it was a fluke, because I never had success up till that point. Like I was kind of not consistent. And then 2 years later, we won a second one, and we won it by 100 points. Like it was, we did so well that year, and that was kind of like a stamp where I was like, all right, so we have 2 now, and then this year we, and then the 2 other years, 2020 and this year, we finished runner up. So 2 championships, 2 runner up finishes the last 4 years. So. And then I retired. I won my last race. We had about a month ago in Daytona, and I won my final race. We came up short on the title, 7 points, but I won my final ever pro race. So that was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. It definitely sounds like you, after that first fluke that you said people might have believed, you definitely stamped yourself on top as one of the greats, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the sport. Like I said, my dad was a pro. So that word kind of, I don't think that. I mean, there's guys that are way more talented than I am, but I'm proud of what I've been able to do. As a kid that grew up in the sport, and like I said, I never felt like I had the talent of some of those riders. So to be mentioned in the same breath as other champions at the pro level, it's a short list, and it's humbling for me. I'm grateful for it. So
yeah. So let's go into X Games. Like, what does it take to get into the X Games? Not only you, but also your sister Shayna. And how was that experience? How cool was it? You guys racing together? I'm assuming. Did you guys race together?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like we need an event first, right? So the X Games, it's kind of crazy. I was thinking about this the other day. How the events changed so much. Like they had rollerblading in the X Games when I was younger, and now like they don't have rollerblading. They had rally cross, enduro cross, and then Harley Davidson came on board as a sponsor of the X Games, and Harley's big in the flat track, and they brought flat track in, and I was thankful to be picked as one of the 24 riders. All 4 years I got picked, and I think there's only 10 of us that got picked every year. So that experience, man, it was so crazy to me. Just being treated like royalty, going to that event, free shit everywhere, like. In the athlete lounge, Ryan Sheckler, Nyjah Houston, Lil Wayne would walk, like he would come to some of the events and walk through the athlete lounge. And I'm sitting there, like you could pick out who the flat track racers were because like all the free food they had like boxes of Cliff bars. And like these guys Nyjah Houston or whatever makes millions. So, but I don't, and these are free Cliff bars. So I'm like, I'm like shoving all the Cliff bars in my bag, and just the whole experience was so rad. Like, yeah, it was a cool time to be like to where I was at and how that all happened, to do it for 4 years. We did 2 years in Austin, Texas, and then we did 2 years in Minneapolis. Austin, Texas is like my favorite city. I had so much fun.
Yeah, I love Austin.
In Austin. And then we went to Minneapolis, and it was okay, but yeah, I mean, cool experience. I always kind of did bad there. For whatever reason, like the 1 year I qualified pretty good, like 6th or 7th, and I crashed and just never like did well. But my brother-in-law, Briar, he actually got a silver the last year we were there. So, my sister's husband in his house, he's got a silver X Games medal.
Yeah.
And I'm a little jealous, but it's cool. Like at least one of us got something. So, yeah.
So you and your sister were the first bro-sis competition in X Games history?
Yeah, I guess that's the stat. It's kind of it's a weird stat, but yeah,
it's super cool.
No, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm by default, because of Shayna's talent as a female, we have a lot of like first brother, sister, kind of like accomplishments. But that's kind of what X Games kind of highlighted when they did the feature on us, was the kind of like losing our father and then being the first brother and sister to compete at the X Games. So yeah, it was cool. Yeah, just the overall experience being there with your sister and your family. And I would always take my buddies. Like every year I would bring like 3 or 4 more buddies to come with and kind of soak up my crew. Like just let them be a part of the experience. Like, here's your badge. You can go wherever you want. Like we would go on top of the mega ramp. If you go back and watch the X Games from those years, you watch any of the other events, you can like see me in the crowd, like right by the ramps, just enjoying the whole thing. So yeah, I met a lot of great people there, a lot of different athletes that I still keep in touch with. So yeah, it was a cool experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. Walk me through your craziest story of your racing career. It doesn't have to be X Games, but just when I say the craziest story.
Man, it happens every week. Yeah, I mean, it's we get nasty sometimes, man. It's just a really aggressive, cutthroat sport. I mean, you're going 140 mile an hour. It's like a high-speed roller derby on motorcycles. I mean, the speeds we go on the miles, we go 140, so there's drafting, and there's no runoff, right? So in moto, not only is it lower speeds, but if you go off the track, if you avoid a hay bale, you're just going to go off into the grass. But in flat track, most of the tracks we run have walls or guardrails, and it's a really sketchy sport. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to pinpoint one specific instance, but thankfully, I'm relatively unscathed. It's kind of funny. All the riders like, yeah, you got out pretty healthy. I have metal in my arm. Like I have a metal rod in my arm. I have metal screws in my ankle. Like I have metal in like 3 different parts of my body, and I relatively, they're like, yeah, you're relatively healthy. It's like, yeah, a couple metal parts, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd be here all day thinking about it. So much happens every race too. I mean, I think the coolest moment for me was probably my first ever podium in the premier class. It was Arizona Mile. It was 110 degrees. it was so hot. We wear leather suits, like 30-pound leather suits. So it's already hot, like just in your clothes. But then we put on these leather suits, helmets, boots. We're riding these 330-pound bikes where like a dirt bike is like 220. We're on these heavy motorcycles, and the track it was awful. It was rough. It was in the desert. And I just grinded it out. Nobody thought I would get a podium there because I think my best ever finish up to that was like a 7th. And with the conditions and my training, and I ended up 3rd. And I celebrated with I went to Cheesecake Factory and had a cheesecake.
That's your craziest story.
Well, I was so tired, dude. I was shot out. Like everyone's like, "Let's go have a beer," and I was so hot and tired from the race.
Yeah.
I had a cheesecake and I went to bed, and that was it. So, yeah, I'm pretty lame.
Walk me through your decision to retire. You said that you 32 is old for a championship, but what really made that? Because I mean, we see people like Chad Reed where I don't even know how old he is, but he's still going. He's still racing even to this day. He still just did that Australian race or wherever it was, one of the overseas Supercross races. So just take me through that experience, the decision.
Yeah. So for me, I've always I put a lot into racing. Like for me, it was a full-time job, and the level of fitness that I had to dedicate and time to be where I ended up, it's just a grind. And I bought a house in Florida 2 years ago, or actually, no, it was only a year ago. 1 year ago, I bought a house in Florida. But prior to that, I would always go down to Florida for 3 months, rent an Airbnb. We would train. Everything I did for the last 10 years 15 years actually, has revolved around being good at racing motorcycles. And some guys can naturally just wake up, screw around and just go ride, and they're good. Like talent takes you so far. For me, it's been a grind, and mentally it's just gotten to the point where I just was burnt out. So I actually thought about retiring last year at the end of 2021. I won my 2nd championship. I didn't feel like I had anything else to prove. But sponsors, I waited too long to make the call. I kind of screwed around. Sponsors called me up. Hey, let's do this deal for next year. Let's do this deal again. And before I knew it, I had all these good deals in front of me where, I need to get paid. I have a family, and I was like, well, I guess I'm racing again. So we went into this season, and, I still feel like I can win. I mean, I won 5 races this year. I still feel like I'm competitive to win. And a big deciding factor, I had a really good friend of mine who actually went to Garden Spot, Ryan Varnes, and he passed away in July at a race I was at. And it really put things into perspective. Like we have people that, it's sad, man, but we have people that pass away way too frequently. Like it's probably every other year we have a rider. Mm-hmm. And that hit home. Like Ryan was a kid that I traveled with, I mentored. He was just like, I spent a lot of time with Ryan, and it happened in the race I was in. Like in the race I was in where that happened, he lined up next to me. He jumped the start. He crashed. We were literally on the side of the track watching it all go down. And it really shook me up. My little boy Cruz came out during that red flag, and everything hit me right there, perspective. It's like, man, I can keep doing this, but there's so much more that I want to do in life. There's more to Cory Texter than just Cory the racer. And I think it's time. So honestly, it was hard to finish the year. Like we still had half the season, but I won that race. So I went out there and I won that race, which is insane to think about. It takes a certain kind of psycho to go out there and win that race. So I won that race. And I grinded out the year, but man, I didn't ride great the rest of the year this year. I really struggled just getting comfortable. It took a lot out of me. So yeah, I think combination of that, and I'm healthy. I'm training. I feel good on the bike. I'm 35. I could probably race no problem to my early 40s, mid 40s. But like I said, there's just more in life I want to do. I haven't discovered exactly what that is, but I have a 5-year-old son, Cruz, who rides, and my wife, Amber, she's been grinding out this journey with me since I've been a pro. She's been alongside of me. So it's time to next chapter my life a little. I'm already sad about some of the schedule came out and everyone's getting ready, and I'm just like wandering around aimlessly. Like, I guess I'm not racing anymore. It's so weird. So we'll see where it goes, but it's been an incredible journey, and I say it a lot, but I'm grateful for all of it. So
Yeah. I want to go back before we exit out of the racing talking. I want to talk about your dad a little bit. Obviously, he had a massive impact on you getting into racing, and he owned the Harley dealership and supported you. But I guess just walk me through like how challenging was it when you and your sister had to race on your own, you know?
yeah. Well, we didn't know it'd be challenging and it's any kid that grows up privileged. Like you don't know no different. That's all you've known. So like people that hammer kids at like the Deegan family, they get hammered and like, dude, they work hard. Hayden doesn't know no different. He's grown into that. It's not like they're less deserving. And we kind of felt the same thing. It was like, oh, they're only good because of this and that. It's like, you don't realize how challenging it can get. I actually think it was worse for us to be privileged, have it taken away, and we didn't know how to build it back up. Like we never had to. We always relied on my dad to kind of lead the ship, and it would have been very easy for us to just quit. I mean, my dad's mom, everybody like involved with my dad, they pretty much said like it'd be stupid for you guys to keep racing. There was many nights in the shop where we would just not know what we were doing, trying to make it work, spending all of our money, eating rice, sleeping in the van. And we made it work, but man, it was challenging. And those early years that we had to figure out how to do it, it made me appreciate racing again. Like I didn't appreciate being a pro until we lost my dad, really. And then I learned to kind of appreciate it because there was a point where I wasn't racing for 2 years. I didn't know if I'd ever race again. So the appreciation level went up after that all happened.
Yeah. It's awesome to see that change of perspective. And then how did you and your sister work together? You explained it a little bit, but you took off 2 years to help her?
Yeah, I mean, we just didn't have money. So my dad had so many bills, and you would think like, oh, they inherited a bunch of... Dude, we didn't. Like again, like we could do a 4-hour podcast on like the logistics of how that all played out after my dad passed away, but it wasn't an easy journey. And man, Shayna was so close. Like a female has never won a national, and she would podium. She was so close. And I knew if we could get her just the support she needed, she could get that win. It would just change our lives. And it really did. Like she won, but it put us on the map as a family. So yeah, she would kind of travel the races. I would call up the sponsors and try to get money. And at the time we weren't high prospects. So like we would only get a certain amount of money. And it's like, well, that's good for Shayna. It doesn't really help me. So yeah, it just helped Shayna. And then later on in our career, she turned around and helped me in return. So yeah, we've ridden for different teams throughout the years. She's been a Red Bull athlete. She rode for Factory Indian. I'm on a Yamaha, but it's nice having, she's my sister. So, we always could kind of come off the track and help each other. And I love my sister, man. I'm probably her biggest fan. And I'm just grateful to have Shayna as my sister. It's been a cool journey, and she's the best. She's a unique cat, man. She's something else. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Coming up through the ranks, did you guys race against each other?
Yeah, I guess you asked that about the X Games too. We did race. We raced a little bit here and there. Mainly, so a little bit. She's younger than me, 4 years, so we would kind of race a little bit. I remember she beat me when we were young, really young. She beat me. We were riding 100s, and she beat me at a race. I was pissed. I couldn't believe my little sister beat me. But then, like, she's winning nationals. So, like, there was a rider who he actually tried to hammer me last year on social media. He's like, "Oh, this is the kid that gets beat by his little sister." I'm like, bro, she beats you too. I'd rather get beat by my sister than somebody else's sister. So, yeah, we did a couple years there together where we were on the same starting line, but it was never. She probably wanted to beat me more than I wanted to beat her. I didn't really. I mean, if she beats me, I'm stoked for her. But she was pretty more competitive with it than I was. It's kind of funny. She might argue this, but we have. I didn't even know this till like after the race, but we were tied in wins at the pro level. Like, so I have 2 championships, but wins and podiums, we were tied leading up to the last race in my career, and I won, and I got a podium. So now I think she's like arguing the stats. I don't really care, but I think I have one more win than her.
That's hilarious.
But she's racing next year, so I hope she gets it back. But yeah, at this point, I got one more win and one more podium.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you said you got out of racing and you have some other stuff going on. And I know like you have the podcast and you have Cory Texter race promotions. So walk me through what outside of racing, what do you have going on?
Dude, I've done so much random stuff just to make it. I had a clothing line I did. I do the podcast, Tank Slapping Podcast, where we talk about racing and stuff like that. We've had Travis Pastrana on and Kenny Roberts and just some really well-known racers over the years as our guests. And then, I started promoting races. As a racer, I'd go to all these non-national events, and I thought they were ran pretty shitty. So I'm like, man, I actually went to a race, and I was arguing with the promoter about something common sense that he wasn't doing. He's like, why don't you promote your own race? And I almost yelled at it. I was like, oh, wait. Maybe I will. So I went back and I promoted the Winter Throwdown. That was my first event. This is going on our 5th year. It's the biggest amateur flat track race in the country now. We have 780 entries every year over the 2 days of racing. It's an AMA national. It's a featured national. It's going crazy. So the race promotions thing, it's a lot of work. I like it, but it's rewarding to give racers a fun event to go to. But man, it's a lot of work, man. It's so much work. I don't want to do it for the rest of my life, but I enjoy doing it now. So I do that. Anything I can that makes sense. I try to do some different things. I actually just got hired by Moto America. They're the road racing series in America to be their mini cup director for next year. So I'm running their mini cup series and anything racing related, 2 wheels, if it makes sense for me to do. I'm pickier now what I try to do because my time's valuable and I want to spend time with my family. Like my wife, she's probably going crazy just because I've been so busy. Since I retired, I've been so busy already. I need to make time for the fam. But yeah, anything I can. I have a hard time saying no. So
yeah. So is that your job going into next year? Is the Moto whatever?
Moto America? Yeah. So that's kind of my title, I guess. It's like what I'm mainly focusing on. But I'll do my race promotions. I'll do the podcast. I'll stay involved in a couple. I do some rider coaching. But I guess that's my job. I mean, I don't know. It's one of my jobs. So yeah, sure. I mean, that's I never thought about it, but yeah, that's my job. So I'm not a racer anymore. So, yeah.
So next, I want to ask you about crews. So I obviously work with Adam, and I was at Adam's shop one day, and we were filming. We had never ended up using it, but we were filming like ads, and he pulled up Cruz's shirt, and I didn't even know that. I knew of you, but I didn't know that your kid had his own personal brand. So then I looked him up, and he has over 100,000 Instagram followers, and you guys sell merch on his website. So one, how did you get into like promoting him? I'm assuming he just started going viral on Instagram because it's awesome. And then two, it's like, how to get to where it is now.
Yeah, so it's crazy, man. I wanted my kid to be a golfer growing up. I didn't want him to get into racing, but he's around the best racers daily. So he's around all these guys, and naturally he just sees it. You know, his aunt is Shayna. You know, his dad is a racer. So anyway, it happened quick. We took the Strider route. He loved the Strider. He naturally had a lot of bounce on the Strider. And then after the Strider, we did the Stasic, right? So it got started kind of on the Stasic. Like riding a Strider around is not that entertaining for a kid. So we did the Stasic. And I remember he jumped on it for the first time, and I was like, oh, wow. I was like, wow. Like, I'm like, that was good. And I'm like yelling to slow him down. And I'm like, yo, slow down, dude. Like, and he was ripping right away. So, but it was like November when he started riding. So it started getting cold, and I have a big basement. So I'm like, you know, he wants to ride. He keeps picking the bike up, but it's like, I'm not going outside. It's too cold. So I took him down the basement, and I have a concrete basement. I remember he did a burnout. It was like, I didn't tell him to do a burnout. Like, you can't really teach a 2-year-old much. He just picked the bike up and started doing a burnout. And I thought it was funny. So like I picked it up, started filming it. And I was like, hey, like to my wife, Amber, because it's kind of a weird thing. You don't really want kids to have social media too young. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know. But I'm like, this is like really cool. And I would post it on my page. It would get a ton of views. I'm like, let's just start his own channel on Instagram so we can like look back on all the videos and have memories for ourselves. So, but the basement thing was like, he would slide the bike just really good and natural. Like the balance that he has, there's pro riders that don't do it. So I would just start posting it, and one video hit and he like went up to 5,000 followers. Then like Stasic hit us up. He did the Supercross Stasic Challenge at Orlando. So he did that with like Tim Ferry's son and a bunch of like well-known people as he just turned 3. So he was doing the Stasic Challenge. It's like the 3 to 9-year-olds. He was like the only 3-year-old. It was kind of cool. But like then like we just kept posting. Then one video went big. I don't know, he had a video that had like a couple million. And then anyway, it just like it took off. It made him a TikTok. I hate TikTok, but I was like, let's just try this TikTok thing. And we put a video up on TikTok. It got like 27 million views. And he jumped. Dude, he has like 250,000 followers. So it's very weird because now he's 5. So the journey has went from a Stasic to a PW50 to a Cobra. Now he's on a Cobra. He just turned 5. And the journey's weird because I have fans that come up to me at my races and want his autograph. They look past me. They're like, hey, we follow your son on social media. We saw that his dad raced something. We looked up and there was 1-2 hours from our house. We came and we wanted to get your son's autograph. I'm like, well, that's pretty weird.
That is awesome.
I'm Cory, by the way. Nice to meet you. I race too. And no, so the journey with him has been, we have so much fun with it. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy how fast it's elevated. Like he's 5 now. He's Cobra. He's on Cobras, which is like a super fast 18 horsepower bike. And yeah, we'll see where it goes from here. But we did a bunch of races this year. He won a handful of really big races, and he loves riding. So it gets him off his iPad. It gets him outside. And that was the biggest thing, just keeping him active, going outside and doing like old school kid things, you know?
So this is the Defying Odds podcast. When I say defying odds, what is there a story or is there a time in your life that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I just think in general, like the things we've talked about, you know, the journey that I've had in racing and what I've had to do to get to that point. I think it's just good for anybody. And you don't have to be a racer. You don't have to, you know anything about action sports. But if you want something, you can make it happen. And it's crazy because if you could have seen my career early on in my pro career, I was getting, you know, I was like 50th in qualify. I was, you know, way in the back of the pack. And I just think I just wanted it more than the other riders. Like I was fully dedicated on being good at racing, getting better at racing, I should say. And I just, everything I did, everything that my life revolved around being successful at racing. It's what I truly wanted. Like you live once. If you really want something, go put the work in and do it. Like, you know, I'm real big on accountability. And if you don't look in the mirror and realize that there's some sort of problem for why you're not where you're at, if you're always pointing at the other guy and saying, well, he has all this, it's not fair. It's like, life's not fair. Like there's a reason he has what he has. He didn't just get it handed to him. So I think accountability is big for anybody chasing success in sports, business, finance. If you look in the mirror and you have accountability, you realize there's a problem, you're going to get better and you're going to fix it. If you just dodge accountability, you don't recognize there's a problem and you don't find a way to fix it. So yeah, I would just say, hard work, accountability. Again, that's my favorite word. People get tired. The kids I train, they get so tired of me hearing, because I help out a lot of younger riders and they'll come in and they'll like be pissed about their bike. And I'm like, I didn't ask you about your bike. I'm like, what can you do better? And that's a big thing for me is, you know, and I wasn't like that when I was younger. I was a big excuse maker, and I actually had it on my gas tank of my motorcycles. I got a sticker made, and it was no excuses. And it more than anything, it was a reminder for me. It's like, hey, don't make excuses. Figure out what you did wrong, and make it better. And I think a lot of my career, the success that I've gotten in my later years, is just because of that. So, yeah, in general, if you want something, go do it, get it done. So
awesome. I think that's a great place to end it. So Cory, thank you so much for coming on.
This is rad, man. This is cool. I appreciate it. Really cool setup. And yeah, it was fun. And looking forward to the other podcast you do down the road. Thank you.
Awesome.